to Leitner. Puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
It's the Culture State Podcast. I guess that's the easy thing to say right there. I am Chris Lee.
And I'm Dennis Cox.
The outtakes of this thing will be hilarious.
Don't worry, I'm putting that together.
Yeah. I mean, put it at the end. For the folks who are watching, thank you for watching. For the folks who are listening, thank you for listening. This week we're gonna have NC State head football coach Dave Doeren joining us, and this is big, because this is the first major head coach from North Carolina, actually. Current head coach that has joined us on the podcast. So we're excited definitely to have him on here to talk to us and to know a little bit more about Dave Doeren behind the actual football coach.
Yeah, it was nice actually hearing Dave. We're actually going to hear him open up a little bit about, what he enjoys off the field, outside of practice, outside of the office, which a lot of people unfortunately tend to forget that these coaches, these athletes are people too, and they also have lives outside of what they do for their job. Mm-hmm. And it's important for us to continue to understand that these people do have lives outside of what we see on TV or what we see, through the highlights or whatever it may be.
And, that's something that I think a lot of people, especially NC State, those fans are, very, very, very passionate about who they are in their school. And so they have two natural enemies in the area. Right. Yeah. And so a lot of times, if you're a Carolina fan, if you're a Duke fan, if you're an NC State fan, you can kind of forget about the humanity of folks. You just know that this person isn't wearing the colors that I like. And so I'm going to, cheer against them. But you never know what people are really like. You might really, really like that person. You might see them out at a concert or see them at a brewery and get it and have a great conversation with this person. And I think that's what, this podcast is about too, is just kind of bringing all that together, people representing their different parts of what makes North Carolina great. And you'll hear a little bit more about Dave Doeren. These are things that I didn't know about Dave Doeren, and he opened up about those things.
Yeah, it is nice hearing that. And also he's like many people that are in the state. He's a transplant. He grew up in Kansas, spent time all out in the Midwest, was at Wisconsin, then at Northern Illinois, then came to Raleigh. And for someone that has come to North Carolina like myself, embracing the culture that this state has to offer in terms of not only just the sports culture, obviously him being a coach, you have to embrace the sports culture because you are part of it, but just what everything this state has to offer. And it's really cool seeing someone at that high level of position come in and say that, you know what, I like this state. I like all that this state has to offer.
Amazing. And he's definitely a huge part of this state, being the head coach of NC State. Mm-hmm. He's always going to hear it from the fans, whether he's doing a great job or a bad job. He's always going to hear it. So he is a part of this state and the state's history for forever. So we're going to hear from the head football coach of the North Carolina State Wolfpack, coming off of a great 2020 season, most ACC wins in the program's history. Went to the Gator Bowl. Unfortunately, didn't win that, but the fact that they followed up a bad season with such a successful season is really great, and especially a successful season during COVID. And you'll hear him talk a little bit more about that and about a family, a bunch of other things right here on the Culture State Podcast after this. All right, Culture State Podcast back with a special guest, the head football coach of the North Carolina State Wolfpack. This is big time for us, and it's big time that you're here. Coach Dave Doeren, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Appreciate you having me on, Chris and Dennis. Good to see you guys.
I want to know,
Chris, I just want to let you know real quick, Chris, before we get started, that he used to live in Wisconsin and then moved to Raleigh. Do you know any other awesome people who used to live in Wisconsin and moved to Raleigh in the early 2010s? Just curious if you know anybody else.
I know somebody who went to Raleigh, then who was from Raleigh, was in Raleigh, then went to Wisconsin.
Okay, fine. That's fine. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
Go
we're
ahead.
talking about you, Dennis. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
we're gonna make this
yeah.
about you.
Yeah, that's fine. I get it, Chris. Go ahead. Move on.
Were you guys in Wisconsin at the same time, Dennis?
We actually moved down roughly at the same time. Coach, you moved down around 2013, if I remember correctly.
I did. I went from Wisconsin to Northern Illinois and then to North Carolina.
Yeah. So about that same time is when I made the trek down to North Carolina or to Raleigh, I should say.
I was actually going to ask him about his move down to North Carolina. When you first came down to Raleigh, first off, had you experienced Raleigh before, been here before? What were your impressions of the city when you first got here?
I had not been to Raleigh. I'd been to Charlotte. I'd been in the mountains, Asheville and Boone and some of the places on the western part of the state that we would vacation in. But love it here. It's the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life. And so this is home to us, even though I'm not from North Carolina. It's the longest we've ever lived anywhere as a family. And so, all three of my sons have been able to go through the entirety of their schooling here, and got great friends, and really enjoy, not just kind of what Raleigh's all about, but just the lifestyle of the state of North Carolina.
That lifestyle is easy to fall in love with. Is there anything obviously outside of what you all do in terms of coaching that you all have embraced in terms of the culture here in the state of North Carolina, outside of the sports world?
Yeah, well, we both love the outdoors, and just being able to be in a lake or be in the ocean or be in the mountains, within a day's drive, a couple hours drive in most cases. We've embraced that. We have spent a lot of time at Lake Gaston. It's only about 90 minutes from Raleigh, and have a son now that's at Appalachian State, so we'll go up and see him in Boone, and another son that's at NC State. But we're country music fans. We love good food. We love the outdoors, and obviously the state has a lot of those things that you can enjoy.
I was going to ask. I know that as a Division I head football coach, you at a place like NC State that basically runs Raleigh. You probably don't get a chance to go to a lot of places and just like wind down. But if you are in Raleigh, I mean, you don't have to tell us exactly where, because we don't want people flocking to those places. But like, what do you do on your off time when you do have a chance to just wind down and just be Dave Doeren, the person, and not Dave Doeren, the football coach, where you don't have to think about football? You can just enjoy your time with your family.
Well, my wife and I go out to eat a lot in the city and try a lot of different places. We try to at least once a week go visit a place either that we really like or try to find something new. I mean, that's one thing that's great about this town, even though I don't like the traffic that came with the expansion that's happening here. There's a lot of new restaurants. I mean, it's like every time you turn around, there's a new place to try out. So, we've enjoyed that. But really just taking advantage of the quality time when I have it with Sarah and the kids, and whether we stay at home and grill out or head out, somewhere to eat. But it's really not where we are as much as how we respect the time we have together.
Are you open to vegan food? Because my partner Dennis here is like completely against it for some reason.
Is that right? I'm not mad at much food. I'm pretty much friends with all types of foods. I'm not one to eat whatever's put in front of me.
All right, I'm very called out right now. Chris is probably going to tell you how I don't like wine and I don't like jam or jelly.
That was next.
And I don't drink IPAs. So you probably enjoy all those things, which is totally fine, and I accept that.
I'm just trying to pressure him into having a good time. That's it. That's all.
There's a lot of good IPA beers in the state, Dennis. I think you're going to have to open up your palate a little bit, man.
Listen,
I've tried.
What's your favorite IPA?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I do really like WRAL Brewing Company. They've got a lot of good IPAs there, but any of the places in the state, that make them, seems like all of them have a good product or two that you can try. But here in Raleigh, the one over at WRAL has been really good. Bond Brothers has really good IPAs. Those two places I've been. Obviously, with COVID shutting some things down, it's been hard, to get to the spots that we used to go visit.
Right. Dennis, if Coach Doeren invites you out for an IPA, you're gonna be like, "No, I pass. I don't like those."
Well, if Coach Doeren invites me out, yes, I will go. I will go. If they had an amber ale at the brewery, I'm 100% in. I'm all in on that. That's the thing. You slide a New Belgium Fat Tire in front of me, a Red Oak.
Red Oaks are good.
I'm good. Yeah, Red Oak is fantastic. I would totally 100%. I just, again, I haven't found an IPA that I really do enjoy. Now, I'm sure, Coach, you probably get asked, in terms of food here in North Carolina. I'm sure you probably get asked all the time, Eastern versus Lexington style barbecue and those kinds of things. I'm not going to ask you your preference, but having grown up in the Midwest, is there anything specific that you found here in North Carolina food wise that is special to the area as opposed to maybe what you got when you were in Northern Illinois or in Wisconsin?
Well, what's called barbecue in North Carolina is unique. And not in a weird way, it's just unique to the state. Where I grew up, when you heard the word barbecue, it could have meant a variety of things. It meant that you were putting some meat on the grill, and it could be sausage, it could be ribs, it could be, chicken, but you were barbecuing something on the grill. That's what that word meant to me growing up. When I got here, when someone said, "You want barbecue?" I'm like, "Sure." And then they hand you a plate of, chopped pulled pork. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's just like everywhere you go. It's just every state, every culture, part of the country has different idiosyncrasies with their food. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed it. Just had to get used to the language that came along with it.
I wanted to ask you about the recruiting pool that's here in the state. I came from WXI in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and so it felt like I was covering kid after kid after kid from East Forsyth High School that was like, oh, I'm going to NC State, and everybody just seemed to love their visits there. You still have some kids on your roster right now, Khalid Martin. You have Micah Crowles coming up. I enjoyed covering those guys in high school. What is it about the recruiting pool in North Carolina in general that just makes this place, easy to find talent? And what are your relationships like with the coaches of these high school programs?
Well, we've worked really hard to build those relationships over the time I've been here. Henry Trevathan, who's our head of high school relations on our staff, is a former high school head football coach here in the state. And he's worked hard with me to get to know these guys. Obviously, when you come in and you're not a local, you're kind of the outsider, and it takes time to show that you can be trusted and that you're going to take care of these student athletes. The head coaches want to make sure they're sending them off to people that are going to take care of them. And over time, we've proven that. We've proven we can develop them. We've proven we're going to take care of them, that we're going to help them grow up, that we're going to be a part of their lives on and off the field. And because of that, we've had good success. There's competition, obviously, for these young men as well. And, in our own state, there's 4 ACC schools, with us being one of them. And then you have all the bordering states and SEC schools that come in and try to poach. Why is it a good area? I think it's because it's growing. Charlotte boomed probably 10 years ago, and now Raleigh is. And there's a huge population here, which brings a lot of not just athletes, but students, to these schools that are competitive. And so it's improved, I guess, the talent pool of the high schools. And then the High School Coaches Association has, since I've been in the state, continued to work and evolve to allow the high school coaches to better train their players in the spring and the off season, which has helped them develop.
It's awesome. I wanted to ask about somebody like Breon Pass. He's going to play basketball at NC State. Probably could have been a good wide receiver at NC State as well. Is that somebody like those types of athletes? Are those the types of athletes you like? I mean, clearly he's not going to play for you, but if he were to choose, football, those two sport athletes that are able to succeed in multiple sports, is that attractive to you?
Yeah, we've had a few two-sport guys. Thayer Thomas on our roster now plays receiver and plays on our baseball team. At least he did a couple years ago. Naheem Hines ran track, was an All-American in track here, and played running back and receiver for us. Haven't had a basketball kid, even though we're not against it. And we did offer Breon for football and wanted him here as a DB or a wide receiver. Thought he was a really good athlete. And, I think there's a lot of point guards probably in college basketball that would make really good DBs or wideouts if they went that direction. I always thought Allen Iverson could have been an incredible lockdown corner if he would have played football. But, there's just such quick feet. They're such good defenders. They can elevate and accelerate and maneuver their bodies and track the ball so well in space. So, that would be a natural transition for a player like that to come out and be a DB or a wide receiver.
I don't know about Chris, but I know, having covered high school sports here in the Triangle area, it's fun for me to see local players come play at the local schools, like Drake Thomas, Thayer Thomas, Ricky Person, Bam Knight,
McNeil.
Lee McNeil. I had a lot of fun watching him play when he was at Sanderson High School. I remember watching him play as a junior. He was playing middle linebacker.
Yeah.
And now seeing him drafted in the NFL. Is that part of your recruiting? You say, like, hey, look, you get to stay local, you get to be close to your family, and compete against all these ACC schools. Is that fun for you to sell that to potential recruits?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you were in our recruiting meetings, Dennis. I mean, that's exactly what we tell them. But, I think I have 3 sons, so I can speak to the parents from their perspective. Like, when your sons go off to college, they want to become their own people. But the transition, and we can all relate to this, the transition from high school to college is different than we all thought it would be. And having that support group nearby is nice. It's nice for the guys on a Sunday to be able to go home and do their laundry and spend time with their family, or one of their siblings has a sporting event or a church event, to be able to go be a part of that. The thing we had to do here is we had to prove that we could get them to the same places that the out-of-state schools could, and show them that we could develop them into NFL players. And we've done a good job of that. We've been in the top 3 or 4 in the ACC every year for NFL draft picks. And so that has helped us be able to, really prove that leaving doesn't make sense. When you add up the money that a family has to spend, let's just say a guy goes to Florida or Georgia to play, they can get a great degree, they can play really good football, but their families are going to have to spend, up to 8 to 12 times a year, airfare and hotels to go watch their sons play football.
Yeah.
And that's just to see them play 12 games. You do that 4 years, that's 48 times. And then if the kid wants to come home for spring break or Easter break or summer break, whatever, he's buying his own tickets, and it adds up. It ends up being in the $100,000 range over 4 years. And so, it doesn't make sense financially, and it doesn't make sense from a personal growth standpoint to leave your family unless you just have to.
Dennis is an assistant coach over at Meredith for girls lacrosse, or women's lacrosse, I should say. And so he knows how to recruit a little bit too. So I'm putting my head out for him. Like if you ever need any help with some recruiting, I'm sure Dennis will be available to help you out.
I live the full-time coaching life, and that's actually what I did before I came here to Raleigh. So I totally understand recruiting and everything that goes into it. And it's I completely respect every ounce of energy that every coach puts into recruiting, because a lot of people outside of college athletics just don't understand the grind that it takes to recruit student athletes. It's coach, it's not an easy thing.
No, it's time consuming, and it's changed so much with social media too. So, recruiting used to be about relationships and educating people on what your university could really provide, and finding out who matters to the young person and getting to know them and answering their questions, and outworking people really. It's not that way anymore. There's just so much graphically involved in recruiting now that has almost dehumanized it.
Yeah.
So it's been challenging, dealing with that, because for me, I want to get to know these people and want them to get to know us. I think that's one of our strengths at NC State. I think we have incredible people here, and it's hard to sell that when all you're doing is DMing and texting.
100%.
I do want to ask about recruiting from the transfer portal standpoint, and not necessarily about, NC State losing players, but clearly NC State can gain great players through the portal if that were available. I don't know if you've been in this situation, but have you been in a situation where maybe you've recruited a player before, he goes somewhere else, but now he's looking for a change, and he's like, you know what, I enjoyed talking to Coach Doeren and enjoyed talking to the other coaches at NC State, and he's come back around, but this time you're getting maybe a more mature version of that player. Is that something that you've dealt with already, or maybe even thought about, hey, we may deal with this in the future? So, if these kids decide to go elsewhere, we can still be a place potentially where they end up in the future because of the portal.
Yeah. So Stephen Griffin's a story like that. He played nickel here a couple years ago. He's a Charlotte native and went to Tennessee. And then after a couple years there, transferred to NC State. And that's really how it went down. I mean, he called me and just, Coach, enjoyed meeting with you, talking to you during the process. Things haven't worked out the way I thought they would here. And so we were able to get him here. At that time, we had the opportunity. We had a scholarship available. But it's not always that way. The number of kids that leave the state that end up calling us at some point in time saying they wish they would have stayed home is a lot more than people know. And you can't always take them back. You don't always have that scholarship still. You may be full at that position group when they call you again. So it happens a lot more than you think. And so for us, it's don't ever burn a bridge. If a kid makes a decision not to come here, don't get mad at them. Wish them luck and let them know that if things change, they can call you, because things do change.
I do want to ask you about maybe some of your music choices. So if you get a chance to, you're leaving, work for the day, maybe it's a Friday, you're about to, go home, pick up the family, head out to the beach or something, or head out to Lake Gaston, wherever you're going to end up doing. And you want to listen to something to unwind. You said you're a country music fan. What's the first artist you're going to pop in? Who's Dave Doeren listening to in his car?
Recently I've been listening to a lot of Tyler Childers and Chris Stapleton, kind of bands in that wavelength, I guess you would say. My love for country goes back a long ways. I do like the old country music with Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and people like that. But, kind of the newer country, I guess it's still got some old soul to it is what I'm probably going to be listening to. I do like Jimmy Buffett and things like that as well, and some classic rock, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Nice.
Have you enjoyed any of the concert venues around the state in your time here? Is there any particular place that you've enjoyed or a concert that you've enjoyed most?
Been to a lot of them. We've been to Lincoln Theater, Red Hat, Cocoa Booth, Walnut Creek, which I know is not named that anymore.
Everyone still calls it that. It's fine.
Yeah, Deepak. We've been to a lot of concerts. I love live music, and so whenever we can go do that, it's a great way to relax and visibly see some people having a good time on stage.
Have your players indoctrinated you in any current stuff that they enjoy? Because I'm sure at practice they're probably playing stuff that they like. Because I know my players play stuff. I'm like, who is this? I don't even know who this is. But yeah. I'm guessing your players probably got you listening to some new stuff.
I think he's asking if you're listening to Little Baby, like when you're out.
I don't listen to Little Baby. I don't. Chris,
are you listening to J. Cole? I'm not listening to Little Baby.
I don't know the names of who they are, but I definitely hear all the music in the weight room or out of practice between the players. And obviously having three sons that are, between 15 and 21, I feel like I'm pretty current on what type of music there is out there.
It's a very business-like answer.
Yeah.
And then I can't name any of them.
Yeah, I can't either.
Maybe Post Malone. I could name Post Malone if I heard him, just because my sons listen to him. But I don't know.
I'm the exact same way.
Post Malone is a football fan, so maybe he'd be open to doing like a pregame speech or something for you guys at some point.
Yeah. Be interesting. He's got the always tired tattoos on his face. I don't know if that would fit in with our guys, but
yeah, true. Yeah, very true. Because you guys are hard workers. I do want to ask you a little bit more about the pandemic and just kind of navigating your way through. I know that it was tough for everybody to kind of get through everything, but in the personal times when you're not at the facility, when you're not talking to players and you're not having to deal with protocols and things and coaches calls with the ACC and things like that. How are you and your family kind of dealing with everything? Family that's here in North Carolina, family that may be in other parts of the United States. How are you guys, dealing with all of that, and how were you able to still move forward with your lives that you already enjoyed, but in a different way because of COVID-19?
Well, going back to when I guess you'd say the family quarantining began, we were on spring break, so we were out in Colorado. We went snow skiing for spring break and flew back. And at that time, we were finishing our spring break at NC State, and the school extended it a week to see if things would calm down. And so we just went up to the lake, and not knowing we would end up being at the lake for 3.5 months, basically straight through. And the kids would be online students from that point on. We're doing Zoom calls. Didn't even know what Zoom was at that time. And so just trying to figure it all out. I think the silver lining was the family time. I remember sitting at the table one night with Sarah and the boys, and with 2 of them being in college, just the fact that the 5 of us are together and are going to be together for at least a month. We'll never have this time back. We need to really enjoy it. And we did. We had a lot of good family time. The extended family, not so much. That was the hard part. This past weekend, went and saw my dad. He lives in California for the first time in 18 months because the travel in and out of California was so crazy. And just saw my mom for the first time in a year, who lives in Kansas City. So that part of COVID was really hard. I think on families in general that have out-of-state things going on like I do. But, you hate to see what really not just the virus, but the kind of the loneliness that people had throughout this thing, and how it's impacted, particularly the elderly. I think it's really impacted, the retired group of people that were so used to having their groups they could go be with, or their church groups, or, whatever they're doing. And now they're sitting at home watching Gunsmoke. I think it's really impacted some people and their mental health. And so, I feel for them. Watching the educational piece of this thing from the house, I'm nervous for the country. How much our youth groups have lost socially in their growth, academically in their growth. I don't know how they make that up. It does worry me for the future.
Are you worried from a football standpoint? Even though you had a chance to be with your guys at least for a season, but now maybe with transfers coming in, or high school athletes coming in, have you noticed through spring ball maybe there's guys who haven't had a chance to really focus on football, and their minds are on other things, and you kind of have to deal with some after effects of COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean it's impacted. I guess you'd say the high school and college age group quite a bit. I think the isolating, the removal of in-person classes, the removal of groups, the removal of, the clubs or the teams that they might have been on. There's been a lot of increased awareness, I guess you'd say, from an administrative and a coaching standpoint to the issues of mental health. On our campus, they've done a really good job of educating us on that. Within my own team, I think, in some ways, it brought us closer together. It really forced us to have to learn how to communicate in different ways. And I said this to the team when it all started, this is going to be an excuse for somebody's team to fall apart, or it's going to be the reason that we come together. And we need to decide right now what it's going to be. And our guys did a phenomenal job of holding each other accountable from distance on being in shape when they get back, and staying on top of their grades virtually. So I was very proud of our roster and our team leadership in that standpoint.
Absolutely. And you guys really did a great job this past season, more ACC wins than, the program has ever had. So, hats off to you and the job that you and your coaching staff have done with that, for sure. I mean, it's been tough, but definitely looking forward to seeing how you guys build from that in the future. And hopefully at some point I can catch you somewhere in Raleigh for a vegan burger and a IPA at some point too.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
I'll have an amber ale and a cheeseburger as well.
There you go. All right. Each his own, right?
Yeah, so a red oak in hand and then some char grill. That's probably what I'll be having.
Have you been to the Red Oak Brewery?
I have not. I have not been out there yet. I honestly haven't had a chance to really tour any of the breweries. Have you been out there yourself?
No, I haven't been in. I've driven through that area quite a few times. I know they've expanded it. It looks huge.
Yeah,
is that the one outside of Burlington?
It is, yeah. And I've heard there's a really cool pavilion there too that you can go in and drink and eat at.
I've been meaning to go there, because I came from that area, but actually when I was a professional, I used to be a professional wrestler, like WWE style. My the organization I wrestled with was off of that same exit, and I just never went because, of course, I didn't want to wrestle drunk or anything like that. But a good idea. Some wrestlers have done that in the past, but I didn't want to do that. But yeah, I need to go back and visit that myself, because I've always heard some great things about it too. So
yeah, I think that'd be a good day trip for you, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check it out.
Maybe you can join us and we could do another episode of the podcast there.
Yeah, that could happen.
Yeah, cool. Well, hey, you bring all your Willie Nelson, all your Merle Haggard. We'll pop those in the car because at least my car still has CDs. I think Chris's car still has CD players. So if you have CDs, we could pop those in. And we could take a day trip out there.
Yes, sir. All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today, and definitely looking forward to what you and your team do for the 2021 season. Excited to see what happens in the ACC.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys, and go Pack.
We want to thank head coach Dave Doeren for joining us right here on the Culture State podcast. He opened up a lot more. I think if you look at any of his interviews and his press conferences, he is a little bit more of a reserved guy.
Yeah.
It kind of speaks monotone, but you can tell that when he's not in that setting, that there's something more there. And I think we were able to pull some of that out of him. And it feels like he'd just be a fun guy to sit down and just talk about life stuff with,
Yeah. Honestly, he seems like a guy that, you throw some food on the grill, throw on some music, have a cold one in hand, and you just chill and relax with the guy. It's honestly what he, like, talking to him, he's like, yeah, that's someone that I would enjoy doing that with. And then say that in all honesty. I think for him to be able to relax and, he kind of joked with us a little bit about, me not liking IPAs and things along those lines, which, okay, I get it. I'll catch my flack. That's fine. I respect it. Yeah, but it's just, it's kind of cool to sit there and hear someone who sits in a high position of being a head coach at a Power 5 school, being like, yeah, I love throwing on Willie Nelson or, some Merle Haggard. And, I love to enjoy going to the lake and just chilling and relaxing and having a good time. It's kind of nice and refreshing to hear that from coaches because, yeah, they're kind of reserved when they talk to the media because they know anything and everything that they say can get picked apart.
Absolutely. But you saw how I had your back, right? I was trying to get you, a job. So,
hey, I appreciate that.
You've already got great jobs, right?
Yeah.
But I would assume that, if NC State comes calling to help with recruiting, that is probably going to be something that will be at least something that you have to think about for a second.
Yeah, I'll think about it for a hot second. I would think about it for a hot second.
And maybe they'll still let you do radio at the same time.
Maybe. The thing is, I told Coach, recruiting is so hard. It's time consuming, and it's changed so much from even 5 years ago when I got out of coaching at a full-time basis. It's just changed so much, and it's hard. It really is hard.
But this time you'll be at NC State. You'll get a budget to fly out.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? You get a nice cushy office. You have probably, new, computers and phones and different things like that. Hey, you'll be set up. Maybe you can do recruiting with the Wolfpack podcast and just be sitting there, doing different things like that on the roads to update, fans on different things that you're looking at.
Ooh,
who knows?
Okay. All right. Now you're starting to throw out some ideas. I like this. Okay. All right. And maybe you know what? And on top of that, maybe if that becomes the case, if I have that job, I'll invite you along with Coach Doeren, and then we'll call it day trips with Doeren, or day trips with Dave. You'll ride along with us, and we'll head down to Red Oak out in Burlington. And then that'll be part of it too, because people want to see what coaches are like in real life too. That's part of the recruiting process.
We got to bring Wes Moore and Kevin Keats along too, because I would love to have those three together with a beer, just talking, and just to see what happens.
Just be a fly on the wall with those.
What happens?
Yeah. throw Elliot Avon in there too, the baseball.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, throw them all in there.
Absolutely have to.
I think that's a new Culture State project we have going on.
Day trips with Dave.
Yes. See, look at that. We've already done thoughts with Matt Doherty. All those things. So yeah, we can definitely.
I was going to ask, do you think that Dave Cutcliffe and Dave Clausen will feel left out?
We can invite them. We'll invite them.
I mean, I think it'll be cool to do a Culture State podcast with the 3 Daves. You got the head coach of NC State, head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, and head coach of Wake Forest. See? The 3 Daves, and they're all trying to be the best in North Carolina. Mac Brown might feel left out though.
Yes, and Mac Brown.
He can change his name to Dave for that. He can be Dave Brown for that show.
Yeah, we can make that work. But nevertheless, Dave Doeren's a fun guy. I really actually enjoy him, and it was fun to hear him open up. I really do appreciate him giving us his time, and it's fun seeing him recruit local players, players that you and I covered. That were in high school, and seeing him play now. And we mentioned you mentioned Aleem McNeil, who just got drafted in the 3rd round. He's from right here in Raleigh. I saw him play as a sophomore in high school. Now he's in the NFL. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it sure is. I want to thank him. I want to thank Wolfpack Nation for all the feedback that you ever give to everybody. And we absolutely appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll be back again next week for another one. Hey, wherever you're listening to this at, 5 stars, please. 5 stars. We really appreciate that. You can probably see the calluses on my hand from working out. 5 stars. Thick. 5 stars.
See, I'm now with the hands up. I'm starting to just pull a Booker T. 5-star, 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 5-star review. Leave it.
I'm going to hit a Culture State spin-a-rooney.
Do it. No, I'm not stopping this until you do it, Chris.
I'm in my dress pants, and you know what happens when I do athletic things in my dress pants.
Yeah, you split them.
Thank you guys for listening to the Culture State podcast. We'll be back next week. These things are too expensive. I'm not doing it. The ones from before 2014, that was a cheap suit. This is not a cheap suit. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next time on the Culture State podcast. If you're watching, if you're listening, thank you so much. Peace.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WRAL Sports Fan app.